Good afternoon. I'm Gator DeLoach, Sheriff here of Putnam County, and I want to take just a few moments to address a couple of key issues to this incident at Jenkins Middle School today. But before I get into that, what's quite alarming to me here today is this is the second time this year that we have actually recovered weapons off of the school campus. As you might remember, the first was at Price Middle School just a few weeks ago. Now we have actually recovered two more weapons off of a student at that to me is alarming, and we have to be proactive about protecting our students and our school administrators and those who do their best to take care of our students during the day. But before we get into that too much, I want to share with you just a little bit about the investigation and how it unfolded. So we received the call at approximately 12 p.m. today. Deputy Sheldon Williams, who is standing to my right here, is actually the youth resource deputy at Jenkins Middle School. Through an anonymous tip that came in, Deputy Williams and the school administration was actually notified of a student that had these weapons on campus. Deputy Williams and the administrator immediately responded down there, and within just a matter of a couple of minutes actually had the student secured. Once the student was secured, a thorough search was made of his person and his backpack. There were not one but two firearms that were recovered out of this student's backpack. In addition to the firearms, there were actually several knives, some of which were on his body and concealed in his pockets, and some in his backpack that were recovered as well. The student's name is Joseph Allen Jr. He is a 13-year-old male that attends school at Jenkins Middle School and is responsible for bringing these weapons to school. I don't have a lot of information that I can share with you on the specifics as far as what his intent was with the weapons. He's actually with our detectives right now along with some other students. They are being interviewed at this time, and we hope to be able to glean some additional information from those interviews that we can share with you at a later date once we determine what his intent was with the weapons. Clearly, to me, if someone brings a firearm on a school campus, their intent is very clear, and it's to harm other students. I am eternally grateful to Deputy Williams and the staff at the school who took immediate and decisive action to isolate this student and get these weapons off of him. Otherwise today, my worst fears might have been imagined, and we may be reporting to you about something far more tragic than what we're talking about here today. I want to take an opportunity to remind parents that just as I'm the Chief Law Enforcement Officer here in the county, and Dr. Surrency is the superintendent and responsible for all of the schools here in Putnam County, as Chief Law Enforcement Officer, I have responsibility to oversee the safety and security of the entire campus. And I want to take an opportunity now to empower parents and to remind them that they are the Chief Law Enforcement Officer over their children in their house, and to play an active role in their students and in their children to ensure that this never happens again. We can't continue to accept this as the norm. Weapons get on the school campuses far too often. We don't yet know of the origin of the weapons, but initial information has suggested to us that they may have been in the possession of one of the student's parents, and he may have gotten them from them. Hopefully we'll be able to give you some additional information about that later. But again, it's our responsibility as parents to ensure that we stay active and engaged with our children, that we always know their whereabouts, we know what they're taking to school, we know what they have in their rooms, and that we can't be their friends. We can certainly be supportive of them in their endeavors, but we need to know what they're doing, where they're at, and certainly what they have in their possession, so that something like this never happens again. Again, I want to applaud Deputy Williams and the school staff for taking that fast action, and also thank Dr. Surrency and his staff for the excellent working relationship that we share with the district. I'm eternally grateful to him and his staff for their continued willingness to work with us to ensure that God forbid, if we do have an incident like this, that the outcome isn't different. So with that, I'm happy to take some questions.
First of all, he's a minor, 13. Why did you all decide to release his name?
This is a felony that he's charged with, actually multiple felonies, and Florida law actually allows us to release juveniles' names whenever they're charged with felonies.
And then with the interaction of this child, did he say anything in particular when he was approached before being secured?
So I wasn't actually privy to that interaction with him or any of the subsequent interviews that they're still conducting now. So I can't say with certainty one way or the other.
Would Deputy Williams be able to, since he was there?
Because it's an ongoing investigation, I don't really want to get into too much of the specifics about that right now.
Has this student gotten in trouble for school before? Like, what's his history?
I can't speak to his school history, but I can tell you that he and several other juveniles have become what I'll call a neighborhood nuisance in the area that they live in.
What are the charges? What are felony charges?
So that remains uncertain right now. Obviously, he will be charged with 2 counts of possession of a firearm on a school campus, but there may be some additional charges based on that sequence of interviews that we're doing right now and what information we glean from those.
There's a group of children. Do you know if this is tied to gangs or anything of that nature?
I think that might be a stretch to suggest that it's any type of gang activity. I think it's a group of juveniles that have idle time on their hands, and as we know, idle hands are the devil's workshop sometimes.
When you say several knives, are you able to give the exact number?
I believe there were 3, to my knowledge.
What type of guns were they?
They were handguns. I believe they were 9mm caliber handguns, one of which was actually loaded, the other was not. And I couldn't give you any specifics as far as the brand of the firearms or anything else like that.
Was this incident in connection to the one that happened in the video?
I'm sorry, which video are you referring to?
Is being investigated as well by the school district?
No, that's
Not to our
a
knowledge,
completely
no.
separate incident. That actually occurred at Interlochen High School, and after we finish up talking about today's incident at Jenkins, we're actually prepared to share with you some information about Interlochen High School as well.
So what has been the parent's response to this situation?
As far as this young man's parents, I haven't had any interaction with him. The parents will come down to the sheriff's office, and we'll have an opportunity to have a very frank discussion with them then. But I couldn't tell you with certainty if that's occurred at this point.
Any other questions about today's incident? And I'll start off on the Friday incident. There was an incident that took place at Interlochen High School. There was a incident where a student struck another student. It was like a bullying type situation, and some students in the who witnessed the fight actually videotaped it, and then that's how the video was circulated on social media. That situation has also been referred to the sheriff's office, and the school system also has taken action. All individuals involved, either directly or indirectly, there will be consequences per our guidelines. And then if there's any charges or anything related to law enforcement, then the sheriff will address that matter.
Are you able to say what those types of consequences are? I know that there's someone in their handbook for bullying and things like this.
Yeah, it'll be directed according to what their role was, whether they actually were involved in fighting the student, or they were there encouraging the other student to hit them, and that type of thing. So.
Has the student seen punching the other one in the video been suspended? What's the status on that?
Well, action has been taken, and but again, we can't because of confidentiality say what has happened to that student. But it is also being investigated by school officials and by the sheriff's office.
How many students are involved?
I don't have that total number right now. That's being investigated, but there were a number of people that were witnessing that fight. Okay.
As the superintendent of the school district, are you considering medical protection if you have already happened in your district, just with precautionary measures?
Not at this time. I mean, we have a number of safety measures in place, and we use those. And I'll tell you, the best thing we have are students themselves, and letting us know when there's a potential problem or a situation that's happened. But at this time, we're not considering metal detectors.
Are you able to say the student who is seen attacking the other student, does he have any prior history? Has he gotten in trouble with the school?
I can't address that at this time. Yeah. Yes, we do that, and we do have our school board policy addressing bullying. It's policy number 5517.01, which addresses bullying. Yep.
Now, was there a situation, I got word that the changes were made to the suspensions with the children, and at one point both were suspended, now that student is back at school?
I can't address that at this time.
Anything else you want the public or parents to know about these incidents?
Well, I just want to stress that we are very concerned about the safety of our students, and we want all of our students to be safe, and we also want their mental well-being to be good as well. And anytime there's a situation where they're having trouble, we want them to reach out to our school personnel, mental health counselors. We're very intent on making sure that students have access to mental wellness, and if they're having a problem with a student, we want them to reach out to us so we can intervene in the meantime. But our main thing is we want students to feel safe and to be safe, and in order to do that, they need to have that relationship with at least one adult on campus that they can come to if they're having a problem.
Do you speak to the comments on bullying and anti-bullying just in general in the system?
Well, bullying, students can't learn if they're being bullied or there's a threat of bullying. And we want to make sure that students feel safe. And, bullying a lot of times is a symptom of a bigger problem that, again, we want to address through our mental health program. So, again, bullying is devastating no matter, what situation it is. So we want to make sure that we provide safety nets for those students who are having a problem. And, the other thing about bullying, students feel empowered when other students are watching this happen. So again, if you're watching it happen and you're not reporting it, then you are part of the problem. So we want to make sure that if you see something going on, that you report it, and don't be the audience, don't be part of the problem.
In that video, it looks like, I think it happened on Friday, it looks like it was inside a bathroom. How long after were staff notified? How long in between were you guys
I think
aware of
we'll
it?
let the sheriff
I
answer
can-
that.
I
Yeah,
can
because
actually-
he has
we
that
know
information.
Sort of everything, the steps we took with these resources.
Okay.
So you want to address the law enforcement part of it?
Okay, so specifically regarding the incident at Interlochen High, I'll share some information with you, and then I'll be happy to take some questions afterwards. So we are aware that multiple students were in the bathroom. That was evident based on the video that we saw, and the subsequent interaction that we've had with some of the students. I can tell you that within 30 minutes, this matter was handled. So a couple of years ago, there were actually some changes that were made at the legislative level, and it actually took away law enforcement's ability to arrest students for misdemeanors, just like this, if someone was the victim of a battery. And what is the preferred method, and what is actually required by statute, is that we have a mandatory statutory responsibility to refer them to some type of a prejudicial diversionary program. Here in Putnam County, again, we have a very robust partnership with the Putnam County School District, and through that partnership, we've actually bonded together and formed what's called our Juvenile Crime Prevention Office. Through that Juvenile Crime Prevention Office, there are multiple levels of diversionary programs that are offered through that. This student was actually given what's called a juvenile civil citation per Florida statute that I just spoke of a few moments ago, and will undergo some very intensive counseling and community service to help him work through this on a diversionary basis prior to engaging with the juvenile system. However, with that, I will say that if the juvenile fails to follow up with our Juvenile Crime Prevention Office, the statute does then give us the ability to refer the case back over to the state attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. So I know that there are a lot of folks that were upset, like I said, that an arrest wasn't made in this case. People were screaming from the rooftops that they wanted to take this kid down and beat him on the courthouse lawn or hang him from a tree or whatever the case may be. And while that might have been appropriate years ago, The fact of the matter is, this is 2020. This is not back in the 30s or 40s, and our approach to juvenile justice is a lot different than it is now. Yes, this young man was wrong, and we're going to hold him accountable, because just like Dr. Cernsey said, we have a zero tolerance policy with regard to bullying in our schools. Quite frankly, whenever I personally saw the video, it made my blood boil. I was furious. I wanted to actually drive out to the school and personally handle it myself, but I had complete confidence in not only my youth resource deputies, but also in Superintendent Cernsey's staff to handle this appropriately. So with that, that's really about all I have to share about that, unless you have some additional follow-up questions.
How is that student that was hurt?
I don't know his condition right now. I have not personally had any interaction with him, and I have not spoken with my staff. To my knowledge, he didn't sustain any life-threatening injuries, though.
How long will the investigation be to determine the exact punishment for being in the video?
So I can't speak to the exact punishment because of juvenile records, because it was a misdemeanor. Unlike the case at Jenkins, it's confidential in nature. But I can tell you that at my direction, the punishment for this young man will be extremely robust based on the circumstances. So at Interlochen, we actually have one youth resource deputy there. Yes.
Maybe part of the investigation, but are you able to say why these two students appear to be retired in the first place?
We don't really know at this point. And you know, even though we've issued the young man who was a suspect in this case a juvenile civil citation, we're still trying to delve into through the interview process why this happened and really work back towards the root cause of it to prevent further incidents like this from happening.
So who do you all speak to get the information? Like who are you interviewing to really investigate and see exactly what happened?
So it'll be a comprehensive interview process. Not only will we speak to the two students who were directly involved, and like Dr. Cernsey said, quite frankly, I'm incensed by the students that were standing around watching this, because the fact of the matter is they actually empowered that student who was bullying and punching the other poor young man. Had they not been in there, it's difficult to say, but this may not have happened if that was the case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, have a good day.